Radio 99.5 FM. If you're watching on social media, hit the share button. Let us know what you got going on today. Feel free to ask questions. I have Dr. Aaron Chapa with Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center in studio. They're based out of League City, Texas.
And it's going out into the bay.
Good morning. It's KHEA 99.5 FM. It's Kickstart. My name is Gardy. Dr. Chapa is in studio. We're going to be talking about health, nutrition. It's a brand new month. I'm excited for everything that's coming up. Chapa, how you doing?
Gardy, I just realized it's a new month.
It is.
That's why I'm getting all these interesting emails in my email box that are monthly. Good morning. Good morning. It's so good to be here with everybody. You know, I was just walking in the door today to the station, and I just said to myself, I just remembered a quote that came up from our Macrofix class, and it says, "Nothing tastes better than feeling good feels." Nothing tastes better than feeling good feels. And I just, sit back and think, wow, what profound wisdom. This came from one of our teenagers that went through our Macrofix program, and it's a program around teaching people to identify, again, with food and appreciate food as medicine and recognize portions and recognize food quality and recognize the difference between sometimes foods, never foods, and and regular day-to-day foods. And so at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we're always going the distance to try to get the right education in your hands so that you can live better, be better, and stay better one bite at a time. And it is just that with the Macrofix program. Nothing tastes better than feeling good feels. We want people to recognize that they're in more control of their health than they realize. And too often we're being marketed to buy garbage foods, fake foods, foods that or we should never be consuming, that are laced with all kinds of preservatives or what we call the 4 deadly food additives. And when they have these substances in there, we can't expect much from that food source to give us life and vitality. And at Living Well, we want people to feel good all the days of their life. We want them to have the vitality all the days of their life so that they can, perform at their best, most optimal potential. And so I just want to encourage you today, if you're not feeling as good as you think you should, if your mind isn't as sharp as you think it should be, if you're not as creative, if you're losing names, numbers, words, if you're feeling a little brain fogged, if you feel like you're more worried about the symptom patterns that you're dealing with than you are getting through to your day so that you can give to the day your best, then we might be your next best phone call, 281-554-8600. We know that, all life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition drives your body onward, upward, goodward, and Godward. Nutrition is the fundamentals. We've got to go back to the fundamental basics because people have forgotten. And it's just amazing to me to see how if you have keystone habits, it's easier to walk past the donut. It's easier to walk past the pastry. It's easier to recognize, I got my big game. My playoffs are this weekend, and I got to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do this week. I've got a big event this weekend where I need my brain as sharp as possible. This week is not the week that you celebrate. You stay focused. You get ready for the competition. You get ready to perform at your best. And so you don't put cheat foods in. You don't put those sometimes foods in. It's not the week for that. And if you did, and if you did, you put it in at the beginning of the week, so you got time to recover from it. It's like we've got to have some wisdom in how we're dealing with putting food into our body, because it's not just the pleasure sensation in your taste buds. It's life. It's how the quality of the life. It's feeling good. It's nothing tasting better than feeling good feels. So I just want to encourage people that, food is medicine, and what you're eating right this second. So evaluate it. Put it in your hand. You know it. If it's in a wrapper and it's got a label, odds are it's processed. It's got one of the 4 deadly food additives in it. It's got a food allergen in it. In your body may pay a price today for that. So, I'm got all these slogans running through my head right now, different chocolate bars and things, and the commercials of chocolate crunching and it's just so fascinating to see how well we've been marketed to. Even as I'm talking about it, I'm seeing the images from the paid programming that I grew up with, and we've got to undo that. And I think the only way to do that is to start having a vision and a plan and a desire. And so I wonder, Gardy, do you have any plans for the new year now that you're a couple months in? I mean, January, February is worn off. We're into March. St. Patty's Day's right around the corner. Easter's right around the corner. What's brewing in Springtown?
There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. That's kind of what's brewing in my head right now as you were talking about all of that. I think we're settled in. We're settled into this year coming up on Easter. I feel like I had an okay start, to the year, and I'm just excited to keep going and even like clean up some things in my diet and my life and pursue my health goals.
Yeah. And I think that it should be something that we constantly are coming back to. I look at your food planning goals should be like your finances. You should be evaluating them on the weekly. You should be evaluating them on the monthly. Because if you have a 90-day goal and then you break that down into 60 days, 30 days, and 2 day, what happens is you ask yourself, is today am I making the impact I need to make so that I'm on track 30 days from now? And then at the 30-day mark, are you where you want to be so that 60 days from now, your course just doing small course corrections to hit that 90-day mark? And you might find that we use body metrics in the office quite a bit. So we use the InBody at 570 to come in and help us see body fat and see water retention, inside cell health, outside cell toxicity, cellular efficiency, cellular dysfunction, muscle mass, increases or decreases. We want to see and evaluate how well the body is looking from a visceral organ fat perspective. Because if your organs are laced with and have lots of bulky fat globules floating around it, and it's like walking through mud. It's like carrying around an extra 55 pounds of trash in your suitcase and wondering why your back hurts, you know what I mean? Or your shoulders are tired or your hands are hurting. And it's because you're toting around extra stuff that's not you, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got to be, assessing and setting, because the interesting thing about your health, just like our finances, is it can change quickly. 90 days can make a difference. 90 days can set us up for success. 90 days can set us up for failure. And if we don't address that, we find ourselves in trouble.
Like finances, whenever you plan, if you have a reserve, something happens, there's an emergency, there's that reserve. And I know you've compared that to your health. You can have a health reserve. So if your body does get attacked with something, because it's not if it will, it's when it will, because things happen all the time. We live on planet Earth, and that's right. There. So that way you have that reserve to be able to handle it and knock it out.
Yeah. And, and like you said, it's not, if you get exposed to something or if you get sick, it's how does your body handle the time whenever the uncertain or the unplanned event occurs. And nobody plans on waking up feeling not so good, and so, or worse, sore throat or strep throat or sinusy. They don't plan for that. But if your body has a reserve, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, if you have tools, things like Congoplex, Thiamex, INF Fighter, these are food-based and herb-based nutrients, nutraceuticals that can help stimulate and upregulate your immune system in a crisis. Or if you have you had a cheat weekend, maybe a celebratory. I had a friend at church this past Sunday, and he's got 6 birthdays to celebrate in March, and he's just like, it's just a tough month.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, one, I would start planning how to navigate that, because it's not like it's a surprise. I mean, the birthdays are coming every year, the same day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like unforgettable. And so it's how do you approach those? So if I was in that situation, for example, I'd be like, okay, so what's the plan? We're going to celebrate one birthday, a month, with 2 weeks out of the month having 2 celebrations. Got it. So we're going to have one big gigantuan party, Are we going to have 2 big outings? Are we going to have 3 outings? If there's going to be cake at all those things, could we maybe home make some where we can control the ingredients? Can cut down on the sugar? Could we find somebody that can make it gluten-free or dairy-free? Could we find somebody that can make it keto-friendly? Could we be open-minded to trying some new things on the birthday celebration days? Do we have AF beta food, Thiamex and Cataplex AC in our arsenal? AF beta food to decongest the liver, Thiamex to upregulate the T cells, and Cataplex AC to de-inflame the gut. I mean, the easy things, tools. So I'm planning out like how I'm going to approach that. Maybe if there is no plan and you just have to go to the local store filled full of high fructose corn syrup and bad oils, then maybe you skip it. I mean, are you willing to pay that price? I mean, maybe it's not your birthday coming up. Maybe it's your wife's or your kids. And do you need to eat that cake? Do you? And the reality is, everybody says, "Heck yeah, I got it. I need to eat that cake." But okay, does anything below your taste buds want that? And no, it doesn't. The sugar is the only flavor in our palate that does not have to be trained. It is just exercise, and everybody loves it. And everybody wants to overindulge in that one because you rarely lose the law of diminishing returns, the wonderful sensation and flavor and joy and pleasure, temporary, of course, of the dopamine hit. And that's what typically it is when we crave anything, it is a dopamine hit. And that dopamine is up for a second and then back down and wanting more. Up for a second and then down and then wanting more. And so you get in this perpetuating cycle where you keep going back to the quote-unquote, pleasure trough. And although we can facetiously say that everybody wants to stay there, it's not realistic. As a matter of fact, if you stay there too long, your cravings turn into addictions. And then the addictions turn into diseases, and because the inflammatory cascade, the domino down the sickness, disease, dis-ease path is a real road that people travel often. And I would just want people to recognize that it is their life, their health, their choice. And if they have a plan, and if they have tools, and if they pay attention to what's coming every week, I mean, just assess this every Sunday, and you say, all right, what's going on Monday, Wednesday, Monday through Friday this week? What kind of events? How many, company parties? How many birthdays do we have in our family? How many anniversaries are coming up? And because there's always going to be the unforeseen thing that you go off and do. But even if you went out to eat, I mean, if you have intentionality, 20 minutes of intentionality on what's coming throughout the week, you could potentially make a better decision if you had to go out to eat, knowing that you got something coming, right? And it's just like you in training, me in training. Like, if we're going to train for something, we want to be our best. We don't want to wake up game day with snot in our throat or some sort of distraction that keeps us from breathing well, so that we can get oxygen to our tissues, so that we can be reflexive and everything to work according to plan, and so that we win the battle. I read something this morning that says you can't win unless you go to hand to hand. If you got to get in the fight. And so often we want to kind of sit on the sidelines and kind of hope that life will just kind of work out for us. But I don't believe that's ever been proven where you can just sit on the sidelines and get results. You've got to play your card. You've got to get in the game. You've got to do your part. And so there is some work on your end, because we do live on planet Earth. There are toxins lurking in the air, in the water, in the food, and you've got to be aware of it. It's no longer can you just assume that there's people out there that actually are evaluating this stuff for longevity and vitality. They're looking at it for the bottom line, profit, making that dough, literally. And so they want to make sure that you come back to their trough of pleasure, so they do whatever they have to do, and to make sure that they make the most they can, and to market to you and to me and to our children and to the generations that come, food supply that they will go back to time and time again. even at the expense of health. That's terrifying. But welcome to the club. We're all in the battle. We're all in the fight. And I think that putting just a little bit of intention behind recognizing where we're going with our health. So like you said you had some health goals, right? You care to share?
Yeah, I'll share. I want to keep my weight down. I want to lose a little bit more weight, and I had kind of stopped lifting as much and kind of get back into that just because I was dealing with some injuries and then got sick and kind of some birthdays and some other things, and so I need to get back on that.
You mean life happened to you?
A little bit. It happened a little bit. So
I mean, and it does, right? Life happens to us, and that's okay. And I'm proud of you because I think if you didn't have the goals in the back of your mind, you wouldn't be as quick to get back on the train. You sometimes can just fall off that train. And I remember a story that my dad went through. He was an avid runner in his 30s and early 40s, and he had an injury. He was running on the sidewalks were uneven, and trip bound, down he goes. And he never ran again, as far as I can tell, that I can remember. He became very inactive comparatively to somebody that was an active runner, jogger, walker, whatever. And what did that cost him in the long run? I mean, what if that's what led to one catalyst that led to the heart disease that he went through? Right? I mean,
right, yeah.
It's rarely one thing that causes disease. It's a multitude of things that lead to symptoms, and it's a multitude of symptoms that leads to a diagnosis, and then the diagnosis just begins to rob us, of nutrients, key vitality, because it turns into an oak tree from a weed, from a seed. When it's a seed, it's easy to be, broken down. You can't really see it, hard to find. If it's a weed, it pops up. You can go, you know what, I can snatch that little thing right out of there, no problem. But when it turns into that oak tree, when it turns into something that's got deep roots, something that wants to fight getting out that ground, it takes some work to get rid of it and to undo the process. And I've really enjoyed this last since October. I've been on my own health track and a health journey, and God has really revealed to me some really amazing things around how I've always taught. Infection. The body's primary problem, challenge, it is, stressor, is that infections are always coming at us. The body is infiltrated. It employs bugs, bacteria, fungi, yeast, virus, and parasites in order to fulfill a need for its own survival. It sharpens the saw, leveraging some of these quote unquote bad guys. But are they bad? No, they're a problem when they become the size of an oak tree. And so if we can keep them at bay, if we can subdue them as we're called to, the Bible says that we are to subdue the creepy crawly things. If we continually subdue the creepy crawly things, guess what? We have more energy. We have more vitality. We have more mental clarity. We sleep better. We recover better. We stress better, because the opportunity for all these things is before us all. And how many times have you woke up and you take your first breath and you're like, oh, it's going to be a great day today. And then you sit up and you realize, oh no, I've got already 17 things on my to-do list. And how am I going to accomplish all of those in one day? Plus, you got to go to work. Plus, you got to feed the kids. Plus, you got to, you know what I mean? You gotta. We get caught in the busy rat race, that being under Satan's yoke, and we get overwhelmed, and that overwhelm leads to some level of anxiety. That anxiety leads to some level of panic, and all of a sudden, we're reactionary, not, planned out. We're not responding to our world. We are, sidestepping and cross-stepping and avoiding the pitfalls, and it's like we're in crisis mode instead of a healthy day, take it as it comes process. And so if we can get people inflammatory-wise, inflammation being just a fire in your body somewhere. We look at this in blood work. We look at this in symptom patterns. We look at this in brain neuroassessment, forms for looking at neurotransmitters, brain hormones, if you will. And we can see inflammation occurring. We can see the body literally falling apart right before our very eyes, and then we know we can intervene. We can put anti-inflammatory herbs in. We can put nutrients that are calming to the GI tract, that upregulate parasympathetic activity, that rest and digest, healing and repair cycle, so that the body is more apt to be calm, cool, and collected. Not fired up, not fight or flight, not stressed to the max, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because who wants to live like that, fired up and stressed out to the max day in and day out? I mean, I think some people, they seem like they really enjoy that, I think, but I think deep down there's a hardwiring of issues that led to that. And what if there's a way to unwind that? What if there's a way to reprogram that, reframe that? Because what does it do for your body to live under that type of pressure day in and day out? I think that it ultimately does shorten our lifespan. I think it does shorten our vitality curve, because we're not able to give to the day when we're constantly chasing our tail, or dodging the next pothole, or watching our back for who might is after us, whatever that metaphoric grizzly bear looks like, because they're always out there, But health and wellness, building that reserve, allows you to tolerate and handle the change that is coming. Change is inevitable. Change is upon us. Are you going to receive it? And are you going to respond to it? And are you going to have the tools in place to manage it with grace? Isn't that right? And I think that's what's attractive to people, is that people want to know that that somebody has a plan to get through those things. I had a lady come in yesterday, and her stress scale was off the chart. Every test we did, it was stress, 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 kept showing up. Showed up in the adrenal glands. It showed up in the adrenal stretch test. It showed up in the orthostatic hypertension test. It showed up in the basal temperature test. It showed up everywhere, Gardy. And guess what? Oh, and even in symptoms. And interestingly, we found that we, a couple weeks ago, had reduced their endocrine axis support, their adrenal stress management support. And we did that because we were hoping that, they were managing their stress better, and that we given them a little reprieve from taking so many of the adrenal supplement. But at the end of the day, this the stress still was in a surplus compared to her reserve. So we're not there yet. The protocol was working. We just didn't have the right dose. It was like taking a water pistol to a forest fire. And so we had to get that inflammation back down. We had to raise the support back up in order to get surplus of nutrients, herbs, to regulate the stress response in a way that calmed those stress fires in her body, so that instead of there being reactionary output, there's a response. Reaction means you're fight or flight. Response means you're thinking through the process. And when you fall in love with processes, success is assured. Some of my clinicians went to a class last Thursday, and they heard that very thing: fall in love with the process, and success is assured. My business coach for years has said, fall in love with the process, and success is assured. If you fall in love with the process of health and wellness, you start realizing it is a journey, not a destination. It's a process. It's something that we have to constantly cultivate, constantly manage, constantly work on. And that isn't always good news for people. They want to buy a product and get a product, right? Well, I want you to buy a tool, use a tool to maximize your products. Your product being your output, your product being your creativity, your product being your sleep, your product being everything that gives you health and vitality, as opposed to everything that is burning your fuse down to where you start having symptoms and disease processes. I mean, for me, I love health. I walk it, I breathe it, I play with it, I constantly think about it. I can't help it. I've been doing this since I've been 15 years old. My wife met me and I was on a diet. I mean, I was constantly on some sort of training program. I remember being 19 or it might have been even late 18, I was doing Bill Phillips' Body for Life program. And, I just look back and just go, this isn't like new to me. Like this is something that I've been cultivating a long, long time, starting where everybody starts, at the beginning, and where I knew nothing. I mean, I look back and think to myself, man, I think now too, like if I could get my kids to start indulging and coming alongside the process of growth and development with the knowledge that I have right now, I could expedite their learning curve. I mean, it's literally the equivalent of downloading off a USB drive straight into the hard drive.
It's like Neo in the Matrix.
Yes, stick that thing in the back of your head. I mean, instant. I know Kung Fu. I can fly the Apache.
Jiu-Jitsu, I want more.
I want more.
That's what he wants.
That's right.
Yeah.
And don't we all? We all want more, and we want it as easy as possible. But did you notice something? That's interesting you bring that up. He knows now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he still had to go into the ring in order to get his body to catch up with what he knows. I mean, you and I are ballers. We used to play basketball. I don't know if you still play. But anytime I get a ball in my hand, anytime I get on a court with a goal, my brain tells me there's things that I can do because I did it so many times that I remember I used to have, this rocket, I called it the rocking horse, and I'd talk to people about it. I say, "You want the rocking horse? Because you got to get it." and it was a move that I cultivated, and I was proficient, and it was a 95 percenter for me in a 1-on-1 up to 3-on-3 game. It worked every time. And I noticed it didn't work as great in a 5-on-5. There's just a little bit too much traffic. And, when I'm not tall, I mean, it doesn't help when you've got a, 6-foot-plus center that can, whack you down. Right. But, that's beside the point. My brain knew how to do these proficient moves because I had done them so much. And my body had come alongside me so much that it was in alignment with my thinking. So in Neo's experience in the Matrix, he learns Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu through the download, the quick input, but he still wasn't proficient. He still had to go through an interesting process to become Neo.
Yeah.
To become the Great One. To become all, proficient in his craft, right? So it's like taking theories and making theories a practical reality. And there is a level of work and intentionality. If he never practiced, the knowing that he knows, you don't use it, you
lose it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not that he lost it per se, but he's not as proficient at it. And it's the same thing with our finances, the same thing with our health. It's the same way with your garden. It's the same way with your relationships. If you don't cultivate them, if you don't keep those lifelines out there, if you don't keep tilling those lands and making sure that fruit is being produced from them, you're always behind the metaphoric 8-ball. You're always lagging. You're always potentially going to miss out. And instead, I want people to just say, all right, what's one thing I can do today to be better today? I mean, it might be a healthy thought. Some people are food is like too far away. They got so much stinking thinking. What if it's just emotionally, we've got to get their thinking in alignment with, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. The grace of the Lord is ever so sufficient for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's called us to be the head, not the tail, above and not beneath. Why do we always believe the curse part, that all the opposite stuff? I don't even know them because why spend time memorizing the curse parts? I don't want to be cursed, I want to look to the things ahead, the things that God has in store that are good for the children, and aren't we not heirs to the throne? So I mean, I want to get my mental, my emotional, my spiritual alignment in accordance with the Lord. I'm reading this book right now, and it's called, I can't remember the name of it, but it's something, activating prayer in your life or something by Charles Capps. And it's talking about, just because you read the book on how to fly a helicopter or fly an airplane doesn't mean you know how to. Prayer is no different. There's a learning to pray correctly and recognize that you've got a contract and that you can use the contract, the Word of God, in order to communicate prayerfully with the Lord. And I think that there's so much, and this is one of the things I love about life, and what my dad taught me, my mom taught me, is that education's a key on a key ring. The more education you get, the more doors you can open. And it's an education that continues to keep you in the game of life. I used to say, if I stop learning from living well, I'm out of business. If you stop learning in general, you're out of the game of life. And so what's the last book you read? What's the last audio that was productive that you listened to? What was the last healthy conversation that challenged you? Sometimes we only associate with people that they're going to rationalize bad behavior right alongside us, so that we're all heading down towards the pit, right? Whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have to evaluate and say, are we only surrounding ourselves with people that agree with us, or are we surrounding ourselves with people that have a healthy growth oriented mindset? Because if you stop growing and you miss out on how powerful the aging process can be, you recognize you don't recognize that you have so much more to give the more time that you have on the planet. You have so much value, and that every choice you make it's worth you taking the time to start your day right. Make sure you drink your water. Make sure that you, in my case, I put my Australian Hawaiian wellness salt into my water. Then I have my yeast reducers. Then I take some B vitamins. Then I do a little bit of probiotic, and then and that's really most mornings. I'm just drinking water all morning. Making sure I'm loaded up. I want to make sure that I'm hydrating those cells, because from the detox night, when the liver's most active, I'm detoxing trash, waste, and debris out of the body. And my body needs to dump all that trash and funk. I need the water to flush that stuff out, so that I'm not toting around 55 pounds of toxin. And so it's just, there's so much to the health journey. There's so many aspects that the health journey impacts. When you're broken in your body and your gut bugs are out of alignment, your brain is out of alignment. That's where you see so much ADD, ADHD, ODD. You see brain fog, loss of names, numbers, and words. This attitude that I can't learn, I can't read, I can't study, I can't think. I got too many racing thoughts. I hear this day in and day out. And you probably do too at some level. You may even experience some of it. And then you have some of those mornings where you go, oh, I feel like I can think today. What was different? Well, maybe you were on a detox. Maybe you had a massage. Maybe you came off a vacation where you were able to kind of decompress a little bit. Who knows? Try to find the pattern of what created the response, because oftentimes responses are something that you can recreate. You can feel good every day. I remember I was in my 5th trimester, halfway through my college curriculum at the Texas Chiropractic College, and we had this Canadian doc come down and teach this board review. It was for the Part 1 boards, everything we've learned over the last year and a half. And it was a truckload of information, a whole week, that we took off in order to go through this class. It was an extra class, a class that was not mandatory, it was optional, but definitely a class that I look back and I think I learned more in that class, because the doc was able to put it all together for us, so to speak. So you had all those individual classes came together to make a giant picture, and you could see the picture. We understood digestion, we understood the hormones, we understood the nervous system, we understood how they all integrate together. Because we're not an isolated system. We are an alliance of systems that create the organism to be at its best and to be fully functional in spirit, mind, and body in all aspects. And I find that going through that class, the doc started the class with food. And I'm like, interesting. And he was talking about if you eat this menu, he literally took this paper and he slid it across the desk of all of us. And I'm telling you, if you eat like this, you will feel good all week long, and you'll have mental clarity. You'll feel great. And I'm sure there was some people that probably didn't feel good, but and they did the diet. But there's always going to be a reason for that, right? Maybe they've got some infection. Maybe they got some sort of mineral deficiency. Maybe they have liver congestion. Maybe they had some sort of other underlying issue going on that hasn't been addressed yet, so they didn't get the full maximal capacity of that diet. Well, for me, I was in a place where the diet served me. I felt so good on day one. Well, day two, because I didn't start it that one day. Started the next day. I felt good on day two, or day three rather, then day four. And then I went to him and I said, so you're telling me I could literally eat like this every day and feel good every day? He goes, absolutely. He's just literally a recipe. It's a chemistry set. Your body is the best and biggest and most amazing chemistry project going on in this room. And you are the best guinea pig in this room. Put yourself in the game. Put yourself in the recipe and start using your own chemistry to figure out how to navigate people through. And that's what I've been doing all these years. I mean, I've done, I don't want to say every diet, but I've done a lot of different diets, tried a lot of different things, and I found things that I loved, found things I didn't love, found things that worked, things that didn't work, things that kind of sort of worked. Then I started applying some of these concepts and principles to patient care, and I started finding that what works for one doesn't work for another. So me having these, this arsenal of dietary tools, this arsenal of nutritional supplementation tools, this arsenal of detoxification. I mean, just coming in this morning, did we not, before we got on the air this morning, talk, hey, do you have a detox, just for my bowels to clean out the trash? I don't want to do a full out, 21-day cleanse. I just need to clean out the bowel. Yeah, I have that. Intestinal cleanse number 2, GI absorb, GI detox. I mean, we got several, products that can help get that process to clean out. When in the olden days, we used to say 80% of all disease starts in the gut. Today, I'll tell you 100% of all disease starts in the gut. And your body wants to be healthy and strong, but if the gut is unhealthy, so is the brain. If the brain is unhealthy, the communication lines, the quarterback is broken. If the quarterback ain't quarterbacking, it's hard to be on a winning team.
Yeah, it's going to be a long game.
It's going to be a disgustingly brutal watch.
Brutal. You
know what I mean? Probably to the point where you turn the show off because you don't even want to see how bad the ending is going to be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how often does that happen?
If you're in Houston and watching sports, it happens pretty often, a lot more often than we'd probably like. Yep.
Houston's definitely in a growing pattern, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in a pickle.
And but and for me, I always wonder if we're just kind of bringing it back to the nervous system, if the brain of the organization is dysfunctional in some capacity, and they don't have that 20,000-foot view of what they want clearly defined so that everyone can see. I think maybe the organ systems, the players, don't know how to work with the alliance, the overall overarching organization, and therefore they don't exactly know what they're playing for. They don't. They go, "Oh, come on, Chop. It's obvious. We want the championship." Okay, but how do you get to the championship? Well, you got to get to the playoffs. Well, how do you get to the playoffs? You got to get through the season. That means you've got to get to the season with no injuries. You've got to get through the season showing up and playing on the court. You got to be able to show up and play on the court at your best physical, mental, emotional capacity. You have to do that night after night, week after week, month after month, during the season, in the off season. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It goes back to what I always love about martial arts is they talk about a punch is not just a punch. A punch is a punch once you've mastered all the setup, the activation, the hand placement, what part of your fist knuckles are going to make contact with your target, and the return, the body positioning, the twist of the hips, the planting of the feet. There's so much breakdown into the process. Again, coming back to this idea that process and falling in love with the process is how we get healthy, stay healthy, and longevity-wise maximize our health. Because I think that's what ultimately happens, is because we're in a degenerating earth suit, we're constantly in the early years not having to pay as much attention, but in the later years having to pay more attention and be more proactive. We have to walk past the donuts more frequently. We have to walk past the sugar drinks more frequently. We have to recognize that food is medicine day in and day out. We have to learn what we're looking at in the 4 deadly food additives, the 4 inflammatory foods. We've got to be okay that change is inevitable and change is upon us, and that we have to change with the tide, with the season, with the day. Because as the days are coming, and they're coming fast, we have to have the mental bandwidth. We have to have the adrenal stress support in order to handle whatever's coming, so that our bodies are in the most optimal position to make the right decision, to play the right card, to show up on the right day, to do the right thing time and time again. So before long, now we're moving back into a potential winning season. And we do that often enough, we find ourselves in the playoffs. We do that often enough, we find ourselves competing for the championship and leaving it out on the floor. And we go, you know what? Everything I worked for, everything that culminated to this moment, this event, is a life well lived, right? And I want people to know that they can live a life well lived. I want them to know that could be the name of our show today, a life well lived.
I'm writing it down.
You might as well. That's a good thought, because sometimes we need to be reminded that it isn't a simple, hey, eat eggs for breakfast, you're going to be healthy for 95 years, or drink your water daily and you're going to be healthy for 95 years. I mean, there's too many other facets and dynamics. There's too many other emotional burdens we're carrying, spiritual challenges we're experiencing. We've got too many dietary marketing strategies to call us offline, and there's always a distractor, and that distraction is coming in a way to get you caught up in busy, being under Satan's yoke, being distracted, being off course, because that is its goal. That's the spirit of distraction. We've got to be mindful that we wake up. The first breath is a great one. The second one is an evaluating breath, and then it's a choice. So you know what I mean? So you have to be thankful. You have to recognize it's coming. Something's competing for your bandwidth. Now the breath is choose responsively, not reactively. Oh my gosh! You remember in Home Alone, we did it again. And and it's panic mode. And in panic mode, mistakes happen. In panic mode, day in and day out, disease happens. And so we're eliminating the opportunities for error when we go to bed on time, when we aren't drinking tons and tons of fluid before bed so we can sleep through the night, or making sure that, what if you're constantly cold every night and you don't know that it's your thyroid? You don't know that it can be remedied with B vitamins. You don't know these things. But what if you learn to manage it by having a pair of socks on your bedside? And it's the same socks every night. It's just a pattern. You put a pair of socks on the bedside because when you wake up at 2 a.m. and you're freezing cold, you throw those socks on. That's your management tool, and all of a sudden it seems to handle that cold feeling. Or you're hot during the night, and you come to Living Well, and we teach you that, hey, when you're hot, you can take God's minerals. It'll calm you down. It'll cool you down. And then now you just in the dark, you take a fingerful of calcium magnesium powder. And all of a sudden, you drift right back off to La La Land, and you wake up feeling refreshed. And you only had a 5-minute blip on your sleep radar, not a 30-minute blip, or an hour blip during a sleep cycle. Now you missed out on the growth hormone healing and repair system. You missed out on that stuff. We don't want you to miss out. We want you to get excited that you are in more control of your health. And every day with all of our patients, we're constantly teaching them how to live better, be better, and stay better. That we can show them a better way. We can show them what, food to eat, drinks to drink, what snacks to have or not have. We can be more intentional in navigating them through life because we have tools, we have resources, we have knowledge, and we have our personal process of experience that we can apply to your care. Then we have other cases similar to yours that people have gone through our programs. And yes, there's some work. Yes, there's some decisions. Yes, there's some things that you have to do. But at the end of the day, what if you feel better 95% of the time? What if you are more productive 95% of your year? What if you're hitting goals that you haven't hit and you don't even know how long because your mind is sharper and your body is prepared stress-wise to manage the reactionary and keep everything in the response zone, and you're responding to the world around you in an appropriate manner? I love the idea of process. I love the idea of how to maximize the stress response. I mean, too often people come in and they are stressed. And stress is job. The stress is family. The stress is finances. The stress is health. The stress is bad sleep. The stress is ringing in the ears. The stress is, belly pain. The stress is some sort of, mental illness. The stress is a big exam, just a lot going on. The stress is of you growing into your next best you. I'm going through a big growing pain right now. Like, my whole world is coming to a culmination of everything that I've worked for and saying, and here we are again, laying it all down, going for broke, going for gusto, trusting in the Lord, knowing that He's got this. What He's brought us to, He's going to bring us through. We have to be willing to let go and let God. We have to be willing to trust the expansion that it's bigger and beyond us. And we all come to that. But I don't think many of us are able to get to that expansion zone if we're not doing the daily disciplines, if we're not taking care of our personal needs, if we're not taking care of our nutritional needs, our financial needs, our spiritual and family needs. We have to look at the daily disciplines and see what have other great people that have gone before us that have created something amazing with their life. What did they do to get there? Because a lot of these big dogs have written it down in books, and anything worth having, somebody's walked that path. Theoretically, you could walk that path and find yourself in a similar place. And that, to me, is just like the health coaching world that we're in at Living Well, is we've taken so many people through different types of programs with different types of starting places, whether it was starting at anxiety, depression, whether it's starting at illness, physical, illnesses in the throat, in the belly, in the skin, in the brain. And oftentimes people just want an idea. They just want to know that they can be in control. And so we offer them that control. And then we train them and hold them accountable to a process. And we lead them and encourage them and offer them help and ideas continually through the whole journey. And at the end of the day, they come back 30 days, 90 days, 6 months later, and they go, I have come a long way. I remember when I was stressed out, barely had time for a shower. Now I'm doing exercising every day. Now I'm drinking water instead of sodas. Now I'm not consuming as much of my vices that I was consuming before, the sugar, the nicotine, the alcohol, the whatever. And so we want to give people that help and encouragement. And at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, all life starts and stops at the cellular level. Nutrition drives it all. And the better you feel, the better you are willing to tackle some of those hard things. Better you're willing to look in the mirror and self-evaluate. The better you look at yourself in the mirror and say, all right, bud, we've got to find some processes that we can trust. And those processes that we can trust allow us to function in life in such a way that we're giving to the day instead of just self-indulging or getting by. I want you to be so potent, that's so intentional with your day that you're electric everywhere you go. That vim, vigor, and vip just flows out of you, that people just want to be around you. You're like a magnet for, of people gathering and in social circles. Now, you might go, but I don't want to be around people.
Yeah.
And that might be true, but maybe then you go to your studio and you write a song. Maybe you go to your library and you write a book. Maybe you go to your blog station and you create a space where you can literally write up a new blog and share insights from behind a mic. And you get creative in your strategy to reach the world and give back to the world. Because whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, there's plenty of people that have called and claimed those psychosomatic ideals, but yet they're still able to make a big dent and impact. So what impact are you making today? It starts with your health. It starts with food. It starts with choice. It's your life, your health, your choice. And at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we encourage you to continue making those good choices. We continue to want to train you and build you up in ways to help you live a better life. And this month at our office, we have a class on mental health. We have our macrofix classes on healthy fats to maximize healthy brain activity. The better the brain, the better the quarterback, the better the choice maker is, and you will be thankful. So pay attention to the schedule and the calendar. We'll post it in the blog, in the link below on our live show, and you can reference it back and know that you're more than welcome to come. Bring a friend, bring a loved one, bring a family member, and let us help you educate those around you that are your social circle. That way you're not going through the journey alone, that you're bringing people along for the ride. You'll be surprised how far you get when you find you got synergy. Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so shall one man or woman sharpen another. And I think that's a cool thing. And so I just want to encourage everybody with that. Live well, be well, folks, and have a fantastic and lovely week. Enjoy the process. Dig into the process. Be a part of the process. And get the results that you're after in your health, in your wealth, in your spirit life, in all areas of your life. God bless you and have a fantastic week.
Don't forget to download this podcast. It's going to be available today. That's going to be on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. And I want to say thank you because I know a lot of y'all are, because the amount of listens that these are getting is just creeping up and up and up. It's really exciting to see. So share this with a friend. You can go back and listen to all of these from years ago. Dr. Chapa, thank you once again. Amazing stuff.
All right, buddy. God bless you too.
It's KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.